Hello and welcome to our weekly astrology forecast. My name is Yelena Crawford and I am an intuitive astrologer. If we've never met before, but if we have, welcome back to my channel. First and foremost, you guys, I just wanted to say my apologies for not being here and giving you guys your forecast last week. I did come up against a little bug and I was feeling quite under the weather. My voice still is a little bit scratchy, so if you do hear me do that quite a few times throughout the video, my apologies, but it's just where I'm at right now. So in pure Cancerian fashion, I did take a little bit of rest last week, but I'm really happy to be back again this week. So this week's forecast is gonna be for Friday, July 16th, all the way through Friday, July 23rd. I am gonna do a Friday to Friday because we have a full moon next week. So I wanna make sure I get that video out a nice week ahead of time. So I use the tropical Western Zodiac, just in case anybody is wondering, with a mix between modern and traditional Hellenistic astrology techniques. If you are interested in more astrology content, I do create my own graphics and I like to create educational materials educating you on different placements, different transits, and everything like that on my Instagram page. So I will put the link up on the screen for that right now. And last and final little housekeeping detail here, if you are looking to get a personalized reading, you can schedule that with me below. I do offer a couple different types of readings. So if you are interested, go ahead and look for the link in the description box and we can go ahead and get that set up. But with no further ado, let's hurry up and get into the forecast because we have a lot to talk about today. So just a little bit of a recap for last week, since I did not do a video on last week. So first and foremost, we were stepping out of that big, chaotic, tumultuous situation with the T-square between Mars, Saturn, and Uranus, which was activating the ongoing Saturn-Uranus square dynamic that's going on all year long and started back in February. So this is the old versus the new in our lives, really having to kind of move forward, but feeling like we're stuck in the past, those kinds of dynamics. Well, then Mars came into the picture and potentially was acting as some sort of catalyst in some way, shape, or form, whether that was by you initiating something like that, which is usually of a Mars nature, or maybe something being initiated for you, which was causing some frustration, some anger, some aggression, maybe confrontation, in whatever situations that was showing up for you in life. And this could have potentially resulted in a breakthrough of some sort. So this could have happened for many different people, depending on your specific chart. Maybe it didn't hit you that hard because you don't have personal placements in your natal chart that made that possible. Or maybe you were someone that got hit very hard. I know quite a few people who actually came down with something and were getting sick. So I think that was probably some type of repercussion specifically from that transit as well. But I know it was hitting people in many different ways. So the Saturn-Uranus activation that was initiated by Mars first, and then Venus came in the following week, which was last week, and took part in the same exact activation. Venus is a little bit more of an easier planet to deal with, but it still was a challenging dynamic in general. So this could have been an ongoing need, may have even been some type of desire that we have for change, or some type of internalized pressure pushing us to make some type of change in our lives that maybe we've been scared to make. Afraid of moving forward into. Or maybe we want to make a change, but we have some things holding us back, and then something catalyzed that and moved it out of the way, which caused a lot of stressors, a lot of tension, ultimately resulting in a breakthrough. So these are just a couple different ways to help you guys understand that. That could have been even happening on a mental, psychological plane, or it could be something really physical, tangible in our everyday environment, including our finances, or family members, or health concerns, or different types of things like that. So that pressure cooker of energy, it started on July 1st and went into July 5th with Mars in the dynamic. And then the following week, Venus entered the dynamic. So just to give you guys a couple dates there. Now, one positive thing is that Mercury is finally out of its shadow. think we may have talked about that a little bit. Now Mercury has moved out of Gemini, which it has been in for quite some time because it retrograded in Gemini. We had those eclipses in Gemini, and then we had to wait for Mercury to get out of its shadow. So now we're kind of seeing the ramifications of what that Mercury retrograde entailed. So if there were any mishaps, or maybe you left out some details, or you were not paying attention to the details, whatever happened during that time frame, we're probably starting to see the repercussions of that now that we're out of the Mercury retrograde period, right? So now that Mercury has moved into Cancer, it's going to really slow things down a bit, especially on the mental plane, our thought processes, the way that we communicate with other people, our decision-making skills, all of those kinds of things. Being that we've had so much Gemini energy lately, I think that this is a really nice thing for us to kind of just sit back, be a little bit more receptive, and stop trying to process so much information coming at us from so many different angles, right? It's a very mentally busy sign, Gemini is, and Mercury is ruled by Gemini, so it was amplifying that tenfold. Especially with that Mercury retrograde, it was just very, very challenging. So we're slowing down the mind. We're getting more in tune with our emotional faculties and seeing where we're at on an emotional level. So that's always good to kind of get in touch with that aspect of ourselves as well, and kind of making that mind-body connection is important. Making us much more nostalgic potentially about our childhood, about the past, about our upbringings, and how that could have potentially maybe conditioned us in certain ways, conditioned us emotionally, or made us operate in certain ways where we speak to other people in a certain way, or we mentally process things in a certain way, and we have certain perspectives about things because of our past conditioning, which could have potentially been familial because of Cancer, right? Cancer also rules that just childhood nostalgia in general. So that these are all things that could be coming to the forefront. And I know that I have also been working through some of these things, so I see it playing out in my everyday reality as well. Excuse me, you guys. All right, so after that, we've got Venus. This was just this week, the 13th. Venus came into a conjunction with Mars. So the two lovers, which are very different planets in general, they're opposites, right? So we've got Venus, the planet of love, romance, relationships. It's a planet of connection, bringing people together in celebration, where Mars is motivation, action, determination, passion, and desire, but it's also confrontation, aggression. It likes to cut and sever and separate things. So as you can see, these planets are a bit at odds. So it could bring many positive things too. It could just make you super motivated about your passions and your sense of creative self-expression, and bring a lot of creative inspiration, right? That's one way it could play out. This could also be a lot of, motivation and passion in your sex life, with your relationship, with your partner, or something like that. But it also could bring maybe a little bit too much impulsiveness to initiate sex or something like that. So you want to watch out for the flip side of the expression as well. It could be lighting some type of fire within us, motivating us. So that's our recap for the week. That's where we've come out of. And now we are moving further, starting on Saturday, July 17th. The sun in Cancer is going to be directly across the sky from Pluto, which is in retrograde in the sign of Capricorn at 25 degrees. I was really excited to talk to you guys about this one because 25 degrees is where my ascendant and moon happens to be. So this is actually affecting me very directly. So if you guys have any planets or points, including like the North and South Node, your ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC, or any of your personal planets or points between, I would say we can start it at like 22 to 23 degrees Cancer, all the way to about 27 or 28 degrees Cancer. In Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, so any of the cardinal signs. So look for that in your chart. This aspect is going to be hitting you directly, and it's potentially going to be very intense. So Pluto is a planet that's all about death and rebirth. It's about transformation. It can bring sudden upheaval that can result in some big cathartic transformations. This is a lot of stuff that's been buried deep within us that could have been potentially brought up to the surface for us to see, pertaining to our identity and the way that we're seen out in the world. Our our ego as well. You know, it could be like an ego death of some sort, some battle that we are fighting within ourselves, power struggles that we have with other people or with ourselves. So the sun is in Cancer, like I mentioned before with Mercury, it could be illuminating any of our childhood experiences, because this is all tied in with this transformative experience that's being brought on by Pluto. Childhood experiences that could have conditioned us to operate in life within a certain realm. And I am speaking from experience. I'm going to share my example with you in a minute, so just hang in there. Early dynamics within family, like with the mother specifically, or it doesn't have to be, but it could have been like even sister or brother, you know, siblings or whatever, anybody that was close to you, and the relationships that you have that specifically could have potentially conditioned you in a certain way that affects you later on in life, in adulthood. Now, these are things that could have been buried for a really, really long time that are being brought up to the surface now. That's kind of like an awakening moment, but then we're left with, you know, once you have awareness and you're no longer in ignorance, it is up to you and is your responsibility to do the work and to transform that, right? So that is kind of the situation. Pluto is not a malefic planet, but it can bring malefic circumstances that can be very uncomfortable. They can be very intense. So however this plays out, it doesn't have to be that way, but there is always the potential for that. So keep an eye out for just things that could pertain to family issues, past conditioning, emotional issues that could have created later on in life, or maybe just emotional issues that you have in general that really need to be transformed and transcended. Now, Pluto is in Capricorn. Capricorn rules over authority figures, bosses, and just Pluto is power figures and power and control dynamics in general. The sun that it's opposing could also be authority figures. It could be parents. So there could be a potential for some power struggles that could be playing out with this transit. You know, so maybe there's a dynamic where you do have some conditioning stemming from past situations growing up with maybe a parent. And now this same dynamic seems to be showing up for you with a boss. And you may not have noticed that before. You may have been completely blind to it, but now you're starting to say, why is this showing up in every relationship that I'm in? Why do I have another partner that seems to be the same as the partner before? Well, it's trying to bring up these patterns to our conscious awareness to be transformed, to be transcended, right? So I think that these Pluto transits, Pluto opposite Sun, especially if it's hitting some of your personal planets and points, it's to bring this to your conscious awareness for you to work with it, right? And these could have been, like I said, things that have been hidden from you for many, many, many years. This could also be maybe somebody testing your sense of personal power, your boundaries and things like that. Maybe you're having to really step further into your power and exert your will, right? Gaining strength in that aspect, some type of maybe intense situation that results in a death and rebirth of your ego or your identity in some way. And like I said before, that can be kind of uncomfortable, right? So Pluto brings this discomfort that ultimately really results in a big giant transformation. So we have to be respectful of Pluto and what it's trying to do in all of our lives. This could just be really big bringing of unconscious aspects of ourselves up to the surface, because Pluto is that drudge, it likes to drudge things up and bring them up for you to see. And the sun, it's opposing the sun, which is an illumination of something, right? It's bringing light, it's shining light on something that could have been deep down below the surface, because Pluto rules the underworld, which sometimes is our subconscious mind, right? So this could also just be like an intense and obsessive over-awareness of self that can be very uncomfortable. Of course, when you're shining light on aspects of yourself that need to be healed or worked through, that can be very uncomfortable as well. So I want to tell you, this is, like I said, this Pluto is opposing and the sun will be directly on my moon and my ascendant. The sun is your identity. The moon is your internal emotional world, your early childhood upbringing. And my ascendant is who I am, my personality, my identity. So I'm just now starting to become aware of something. I've always wondered why it was hard for me to commit in relationships and really build deep, intimate relationships with others, and I'm starting to become aware of why that is. it's hard. Intimacy has been a challenging thing for me, especially I've had some traumatic relationships that have made that worse and more difficult, but I'm seeing where that stems from in my childhood. I've seen the connection. Pluto has helped me realize that. And I've realized that I have a certain relationship attachment style. I didn't even know about attachment styles until they were brought to my attention. A bunch of videos popped up on my YouTube and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I've been trying to figure out my whole life, right? So now I have this conscious awareness of this information and now it's up to me to work with it and heal it. So Pluto is this purging planet, and just in time for all of this, in this transit, the moon will also be transiting Scorpio, which is Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, modern ruler, and it is all about death and rebirth, transformation, purging, all of those kinds of things. So we do have quite a bit of that energy that's coming up for us this week. So then on Wednesday, July 21st, excuse me, Venus will be entering into the sign of Virgo, where it is a lot different. Venus is actually traditionally considered in its fall in the sign of Virgo, which is a little bit more of a challenging position for it to be in. Now, Venus is the lesser benefic planet, which means that it is generally very positive and brings about very positive manifestations, very positive significations into our lives. But in Virgo, it just has a little bit more of a challenging time bringing those things about. Now, why is this? So Virgo is associated with Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. Mercury is very intellectual. It's very mental and perceptual. And it is the master of things like debates and arguments, those types of things, where Venus is associated with things like our sensual experience and our desires and how we go about bringing those things to fruition. It's all about beauty and those types of things. So as you can see, these are two very vastly different realms of existence that don't quite blend as well. But I don't really see a whole lot of detriment there. I mean, it's no like violence or anything like we would be talking about Mars or something like that. So on an interrelational level, like a relationship level with other people, how we interrelate, we might be interacting more from the mind versus more from the heart or how we feel. So that will be a little bit different. Now, always with Virgo, there's a potential that things could become a little bit more critical. So you could notice that maybe you're being a little bit more critical of your friends or your lover or vice versa, right? So we want to watch out for that because Virgo is an energy of perfectionism. And even though Virgos are potentially just trying to help when they're pointing certain things out, maybe being critical of another person because they see perfection and want to help you ultimately, it can be if not warranted, a little bit of an annoyance, right? And cause some frustration or some tension between you and your partner or a friend or whoever it might be, right? So we just want to watch out for that. Really, Venus and Virgo people, I think they can be like fine craftsmen. I think one of my teachers had actually said before that fashion designers would be people who would be definitely Venus and Virgo people. People who work with their hands and who are very detail-oriented with their craftsmanship, like woodworkings and things like that would be very Venus and Virgo types of creative pursuits. So if you are doing that type of creative work, this energy is going to be really supportive of things like that. And I'm sure you could use your imagination to come up with more examples of what you could do with that specific energy, or if you are in alignment with that kind of work. Venus also rules over the things that we purchase and the money that we spend. So you're probably going to want to make sure, and you may even be just feeling this energy naturally, that what you are purchasing is practical, right? It's of a practical nature. Is this going to be something that you really need in this moment that's going to help you with what it is you're trying to do in life? Do you really need to buy that 27? That's not even that big, 27-inch. You could tell I don't have a TV. Do you really need to buy that 60-inch television for your wall? 27-inch, that's funny. Is that necessary? Is that practical right now? Do you have the finances to be doing something like that? Just to give you an example. And then self-care. So doing that in a Virgo type of way. Virgo's all about holistic pursuits, really focusing on diet and nutrition and taking care of our bodies and what we put into it. Food is medicine, right? Movement, getting healthy bodily movement and exercise and just taking care of our physical shape. So these are all great things to do during Venus in Virgo season. And like I said, that goes until August 16th. But not only are we moving into Venus in Virgo season, but we are in Leo season. So the sun, which is our, perceptual guide, every month it changes into a new sign, which changes our perception in general, the way that we perceive the energies that are currently coming in. We do notice a significant shift and a significant change. I noticed things slowed way down, and my health and my emotional world became much more of a focus in Cancer season. And I'm sure you guys can all, Cancer rules over family and home and rest and retreat, self-care, doing things that we love, spending time with the people that we love, going to lakes and celebrations and barbecues. And yeah, so I think all of those things were really brought to focus, especially being ushered in by 4th of July and everything. But now we're moving out of the watery realm of emotions in Cancer season, and we're moving into fire season with Leo. And we haven't had a fire season where the sun was in a fire sign since Aries, which started our new solar year cycle. So we've been through all 4 elements. We are now back at fire season. And Leo is much different fire sign than Aries. Aries is very fast, impulsive. It's like the match, it ignites the fire, but it burns out very quickly, where Leo is much more like a bonfire whose embers burn all night long. And while we have to flame those embers to keep them burning, right? We have to add fuel to our passions and the actions that we're taking and our drive. But if we do that, it has the opportunity to burn for a very long time. So the things that we do put into motion during this time period have the opportunity to keep lit for a really long time, right? So this is our perception and our conscious awareness that is really shifting. So we are really stepping into some energy which is going to boost our confidence. So after we've traversed these watery realms of Cancer and taking care of ourselves where we really needed to, taking care of family matters and all of those things, we're starting to restore our sense of self-confidence. We're starting to feel more active, that yang dominant energy, once again, motivating our sense of creative self-expression, really feeling potentially creative inspiration, maybe, and maybe sparking that sense of childlike wonder and fun and joy within us, because Leo is a very childlike, fun, spontaneous sign, right? And also making us more energized and just brave in general. I think that bravery, it's like the lion, right, is a big indication that we are going to be stepping into this new chapter of our lives. The second half of this year is very different energy, and we are going to be brave and have the strength and the confidence to be able to really do that. So I really like that it's Leo season. Definitely should give us an amplified sense of energy, which I am feeling like I need, and I'm sure you guys can agree with me. Then finally this week we've got the full moon. So the full moon is on Friday, July 23rd here in Michigan. It may be July 24th for some of you because it is later in the evening for us, I know. And this is occurring at 1 degrees Aquarius at 10:36 p.m. and that is Eastern Daylight Time. So full moon in Aquarius, which would indicate that the moon is in Aquarius and the sun is opposite the sky in Leo. Okay, so this is activating and setting off that Leo season. Now, some interesting things we've got going on with this full moon. I think it's going to be really important that we do journal during this time, even if you don't usually journal, but you want to follow what's going on with this, because it's pretty rare that we have 2 full moons in the same sign back-to-back months. So we've got early degree full moon in Aquarius happening this month. And then in next month, we've got a late degree full moon in Aquarius, and they are both very different dynamics. So what this tells us is that there's a storyline that's connecting here, right? So we might not fully see what's going on at this full moon until later when we have that second full moon activation. So I think it'd be really great to potentially start maybe keeping some journal entries regarding these energies and what goes on over the course of the next month, so you can kind of put the pieces together in your own lives. Now, this is another interesting fact, is that it's at 1 degree Aquarius, which activates from way back in December. I'm sure you guys remember, even if you don't follow astrology, it was all over the news and everything. We had that great conjunction, right? Which is a pretty rare occurrence, known as the Star of Bethlehem. There's biblical reference to it, and it was Saturn and Jupiter that came together in the sky. It was very visible and bright in the night sky. That was on December 21st of 2020, which was ushering in a brand new chapter in all of our lives. And I know pretty much everybody in my life that I know has experienced some big changes this year, major pivotal things occurring in their lives that are very, very different than what they were doing before. Now, these things are not 100% set in stone, but we have definitely made some progress. And I think that this is a big point right here of a check-in from what was being seeded back in December and how far we've come with all of that now, and where we need to make some changes, where some things need to be transformed, because this moon is also conjunct Pluto, which we were just talking about, that sun opposite Pluto dynamic. So the sun moves on a little bit, and then Pluto is still in Capricorn. So this is a conjunction in 2 different signs, but I think really this is helping us to transform some big things related to our lives and what's going on right now, related to our ideals and our visions for the future, because we're talking Aquarius here. It's a very idealistic, future forward thinking sign. We have a vision for where we're trying to go, and we may have already been implementing that. I know, like, I was thinking of what I wanted to create back in the winter during the Great Conjunction and eclipse season. I wanted to work in astrology. I wanted to have a job where I was doing more of what I love on a daily basis rather than just my YouTube channel. And now I'm a full-blown teacher's assistant and running a cosmic community and everything for Heather Eland, who's a professional astrologer. So it's very cool. I'm starting to see this all kind of come into fruition. But I still, I have my old job and stuff. So I'm not fully out of my old life. And I think a lot of us are seeing this dynamic in our lives where we have not quite stepped out of everything from our old life or all of our past obligations. We still feel like a part of us is still anchored in the past while we are moving forward into the future. Now, I think a lot of this has to do as well because we've got this Pluto influence, which tells me that there's a big transformational element that's taking place here in order for us to fully step forward into this future that we're trying to create. So we've already kind of seeded this, but there are still some things that need to be dredged up, transformed. There's a certain level of intensity to this full moon. Now, Aquarius is a sign that has to do with our own sense of individuality, although it has to do with the group as well, and our group contribution and the groups and organizations and the friends and our tribe and everybody that we're involved with. Aquarius is very much an individual within the group, right? And I think that it's really important that we get right with who we really are. And I think that there's a lot of things that are still potentially holding a lot of us back from stepping fully into who we are and knowing our truth and knowing our own authenticity, right? And I think that Pluto is coming in to really help us to drudge these things up and kind of take part in this process. For some of us anyways, right? Now this might not be a personal transformation. It could very well be very psychological and mental in nature, something deep within you and your emotions. This could be in your relationship. This could be in your job. This could be in your home life. It could be with so many different things. Then once the full moon occurs, the moon will hit Saturn after. And I think that Saturn's like, okay, now I'm going to help you to ground this into physical reality. Here's what you need to do to be more responsible, to be more disciplined. Here's what you need to do to put in the work for the long run, right? So Saturn is kind of helping us deal with all of those two things. It's also going to be showing us where we might be limited, where we might be restricting our own selves, or where we might be limited and restricted by the group or by the collective. And I think a lot of this is going to have to do with just how we where are we in our place in the world and everything that's going on right now too. There are so many dynamics taking place. People are having to like choose to leave their jobs because they don't want to get the vaccination or whatever. There's just so many crazy changes going on in people's lives. That's just one example, but it's like, who are we as individuals and how do we fit within the group? Are we going to be part of the status quo? Are we going to live our own individuality and not be afraid to walk our truth, to walk our own path? So these are just a lot of different themes that are kind of coming up for people in life right now. So we need to really reinvent these ideals that we have for the future, what's working for us, based off of what we seeded back in December 21st of 2020. And this could have even been some stuff that stemmed from February 11th, 2021, because that's when the new moon in Aquarius was. So it's all that time frame right there. How can we reinvent these ideals that we've already started to kind of put into place in all of our lives? And what needs to be let go of, what needs to be released under this full moon in order for us to step more forward into where we're going in the future, right? So we're feeling this strong pull into the future. So ultimately, I do think that this full moon is going to help us to implement the changes that we need to implement, but we may need to be willing to think outside of the box to revolutionize our lives in a certain way. All right, you guys, so that is my forecast for the week. I was going to do forecast for all 12 signs, but my throat is not feeling very well. So I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm thinking maybe I'll try to come back on sometime next week. Maybe I'll do like a live or something like that where I can do forecasts for all 12 signs. But I hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I'm really looking forward to being back to normal, hopefully next Friday, next week, and coming up with some more content for you guys. But thank you again for showing up for me, and I will do my best to show up for you, but I really need to give my throat some rest. But I love you guys. Peace and namaste. Please help do this channel a favor, like the video, and leave me a comment. Let me know how you guys are and what are some of the things that you guys are experiencing with these crazy transits that we've been navigating.